to head to a land perhaps more acquainted with snow instead. Let's go racing in the Great White North as we get ready to watch Round 8 of the Porsche Owners Club Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Mosport has long been a popular circuit and has become more and more of a rarity these days with its fast layout. Let's take a closer look at it with our track guide. Welcome to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, or as most fans know it, Mosport. This circuit to the northeast of Toronto is a rarity in the world of racing today. Safety standards and the desire for more overtaking opportunities has caused most tracks to alter their layouts over the years. But Mosport is still exactly the same footprint as it was when it was built in 1961. A mere 11 turns, most of which are high-speed sweepers, are dispersed among 2.5 miles, or just shy of 4 kilometers. The only alterations to the turns have been to the runoff areas, but otherwise the radii, camber, and elevation changes are all untouched. Because cars have continued to get faster through the passage of time, it's made this place a fearsome beast to tackle. Clayton Corner is particularly notorious. The blind crest and steep plunge combined with incredibly high speeds to create a punishing combination. Without many heavy braking zones, passing is often difficult. And other than using the slipstream up the Mario Andretti Straight, the only other option is usually Moss Corner. This double apex hairpin is named after Sir Sterling Moss for his suggestion to redesign it after he saw its initial layout. While the plateau-like middle portion and critical exit onto the backstretch certainly give it plenty of character, the heavy compression at the bottom of the hill that causes a frighteningly short braking zone makes this one not for the faint of heart. Formula One, USAC, and IMSA have all taken their turns here, but recently NASCAR has joined the fray by holding a round for the Truck Series. Old school fans can rejoice for the enduring popularity of this bastion of untouched tarmac, but any motorsports enthusiast can't help but smile at the thrill Mosport continues to provide. This place is so unbelievably swift, Joey. Just almost all fast turns, barring pretty much Moss Corner here.
You have to have a heavy right foot to drive CTMP, or Mosport as it's well known. 10 turns, 2.545 miles in length, and you're right, it is incredibly fast, and it has quite a bit of elevation to it too, but it is incredibly fast through 1, 2, and 3. It only starts to slow down at turn 5, known as Moss Corner down there. That's really the only time that you're hard on the brakes. Down the Mario Andretti straightaway, coming off of that straight, it's not a very big brake zone, but it is a passing opportunity leading into that turn 8. And then the final 2 turns, 9 and 10, that switchback after the S's. It's a little bit more technical than kind of what it seems. Stay off of the curbs. The other thing about Mosport, it's not very smooth on this scan. It is still very bumpy. You got to watch out how you hit those bumps.
Yeah, especially at such high speeds. It's going to be tricky, no doubt. We'll talk about those bumps a little bit more in a second, but first, we want to mention our sponsor, Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Contact them today at GameChangerBR.com or at 225-664-2565. Now, in the championship, we have started calculating a bit of the drop points. We'll have one of the two involved in this one. Doesn't affect things much with Arnold Roper. I think he only loses 2 points in this. But Chris Walsh also had a bad day, so he doesn't really gain. He still remains 9 points behind up there. Sagar Dhawan, not attending recently, has suddenly dropped to third position, rather, with Michael Bolton also a bit behind our top two, along with Dylan Scott and BJ Fulton, tied there for 5th and 6th position. And then look how tight it's getting down for 8th, 9th, and 10th. Rondeau, Heindel, and Roche all extremely close to one another, a little bit farther down amongst our top 10. But watch out for Ezra Kelderman. He won last time out in his first time in the series. He's already looking quick here today, so he could easily show up in these top 10 very soon. What about our race details for tonight, Joey?
Round 8 of 13 here at Mosport. Everybody is in those Porsche 911 GT3R cars, those 992 chassis. It is a 30-minute race, and the drivers are in a 30-minute qualifying right now on the track. It's a fixed setup as always, and that means the drivers can just purely go out there and focus on turning laps. Anytime that you go out there and practice, you don't have to fiddle with that car setup. You just have to understand where the car goes fast, where it doesn't like to go fast, and go out there and keep churning those laps.
In fact, they tend to go out and churn out laps here in the qualifying, which is going on right now. Because of that fixed setup, you can't start off with less fuel, so you have to burn off that fuel. Drivers will often come in for pit stops here late in this qualifying session. I think AJ Roper may have just done that himself and popped back out. He's trying to take pole away from Chris Walsh, who sits on a 1:15.3 right now. It's gotten up to nearly a quarter of a second over Ezra Kelderman. It was looking closer before that, but Chris definitely seems to be finding some time here late, Joey.
And to talk about the fixed setup as well as this qualifying session, as long as you start your lap before it kind of hits that zero, the checkered flag, you will be able to finish it. So it'll be curious to see who comes down and grabs that last set of tires, or if this is going to be their last set of flyers as we watch Chris Walsh. Joe, like you were mentioned here, provisional pole, 1:15.3, got a couple tenths over the rest of the field, but not by very much.
Ezra not out on track right now, and in fact, I think unless he gets out almost within the next 20 seconds, that's going to be it for him. Not going to see any more laps from the number 6 cars. AJ Roper has very little to make up to try and overtake in that lap since he just emerged from pit lane. Does not count. He's got 2 more to try and jump himself up onto the front row. It's not going to be far for Jad Duncan as well here on your screen. He's only 700ths off of AJ Roper. So both 3rd and 4th position have all the impetus to try and cut their times down by the smallest of margins.
You see the drivers go all the way out. Grass today, as that was a 1:16.1. Not going to vault him up any further, but does cross the line with plenty of time left to do an additional lap here as we jump back up to this 104. This is the dive heading into Moss Corner here. This is the tricky part, that you got to stand on the brakes, get the car rotated over all of those bumps, and the bumps don't even stop until the exit curb, and you're on the Mario Andretti straightaway. A very difficult section of racetrack.
And the straightaway, as you can see, is not particularly straight, but it's definitely full throttle all the way climbing uphill. So getting that power down early going to be so important as Chris leans it into the S's. Now, let's see what the last of the lap has for him. He's hovering just around his best time right now. He's going to have one more go if this doesn't improve. We'll see if this is enough. He goes very wide. I think that was still within the boundaries. It was, but he's not quicker. 15.351.
Just a tiny bit slower as we jump over to Dylan Scott now, and I believe this is rounding out of turn number 3. In my opinion, the longest turn on this racetrack. It just seems to last forever, and there's just more shots of the elevation throughout Mosport here. It really is a huge piece of this racetrack, the up and down, all the hills here. They're so much fun to race on.
Looks like Will Castillo finishes up unable to go quicker this time by. He's the first to take the checkered flag. Larry Haas abandons his lap. He's done and will start no better than 10th position. Dylan Scott's our next one in the 08 car. He's in 5th right now. Mike Parsons, unfortunately, going off at Moss Corner. So that's it for him. This is AJ Roper. Ooh, he's looking like he actually might improve. Lap is looking good here. Remember, he doesn't need very much at all to try and take the front row. He comes off the last turn, will cross the line. 15.523. And yes, that is just enough to jump into P2.
Am I seeing this right? 3/1000ths of a second he was able to edge out Kelderman there on that final lap. So that is a way to end qualifying. A great lap from AJ Roper.
Yep, qualifying is now officially over as no other drivers are able to complete a lap from here. 12 cars ready to go for round 8. And I mentioned in the intro that last time out we had rain. The good news is forecast is pretty much no rain at all today. I've seen no signs of any clouds or anything heading this way on the radar. The forecast is showing 0% all the way down. It does say partly cloudy later on, but I believe the race will be over by the time we reach that, which is around 6 o'clock here, virtual standard time. We're only at about just before 5 p.m. right now. So thankfully, or at least for the drivers, thankfully, it will be a dry race today and won't see the craziness that we witnessed back in Japan. But looks like they're now ready to grid up. So let's go through our starting order. Chris Walsh starts it on the pole position with AJ Roper in second. Ezra Kelderman going to be starting in P3 and Jad Duncan in fourth. After that, Dylan Scott will be fifth position as BJ Fulton starts P6 and Mark Rondeau in seventh. Jeff Shulam to his outside there of row 4. Dustin Heindel will start ninth today. Larry Haas will be in P10. And then it's Will Castillo and Mike Parsons rounding out our 12 cars. Everybody was able to set a lap in this one. So thankfully, they all got something representative on the board. This is a track that often sees a lot of attrition, Joey. I have a feeling that just keeping it on the island will pay big dividends today.
One of the reasons is because it's so fast, right? And we've got a great temperature, 66 degrees ambient. That means it is going to be full of grip. The drivers are going to say, hey, I've got cool track temperatures. I'll be able to push it a little bit further in those brake zones. And we talked about how fast this place was. And you couple that with some of these sweeping corners. If you go off, Joe, you're right. The attrition rate usually is high because those walls creep up on you really fast.
Yeah, and those who are familiar with modern Mosport may have noticed that there's some missing paved runoff in places. This is a very old version of it at this stage, so it's missing a lot of those sort of safety nets for the drivers. So you go off, you're going to be sliding for quite some time on the grass and potentially out to the barrier, where you can see the weather is pretty good with 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Should get the tires warmed up decently. And here we go. Pace car is in. Chris Walsh waits for the call from the flag stand. And there it is. Green flag is out. He doesn't get a good jump, though. AJ Roper rounds his outside, has a nose ahead, but it's a right-hander. It's going to be tough to get this one done. He's going to hang tough, and he's going to be able to get fully ahead by the time they reach turn 2, Clayton Corner, and AJ Roper takes the lead.
Walsh looked to the inside of 2, and now we've got at least one car off there. I believe that's Dylan Scott going wide. 2 cars off in turn number 2, but they don't spin it around, thankfully. No walls are grabbed yet. Everybody keeps going. Still Roper, Walsh, Kelderman out front.
It was Jad Duncan and Will Castillo who somehow miraculously kept it out of the tires there as we hit Moss Corner for the first time. Roper still ahead of Chris Walsh. He needs a good exit here, and it does look decent as we watch Rondeau, who's definitely under threat from Dylan Scott, and he's trying to chase on BJ Fulton.
Yeah, I think that little 3-pack right there has a little scrap. Oh, and a little bit of door banging further back. I believe that was Jad Duncan and Mike Parsons as they're going down the Andretti straightaway for the first time, just kind of figuring out where it all goes. You were mentioning it is not straight down that straightaway.
And spotter apparently was not working as Parsons just about squeezed him off the road. Duncan unable to make the pass down into turn 9. And as they finish lap 1, your order at the top is Roper, Walsh, Kelderman. A change for the top 2.
Yeah, but if we look, the top 8 are all only separated by about 0.2, 0.3 per car. So every single one of these cars still very much in the fight, and with how high these speeds are in some of these corners, you do have to worry about a little bit of the dirty air. That's not affecting Mark Rondeau. He is on the attack.
Yeah, he's been very close behind BJ Fulton for a bit now. Can't seem to make it happen quite yet. He's still got plenty of race left to go, though. as they swing it out through Moss Corner. I could tell as we switch our attention to Roper, I saw him go very wide. I think it was more to try and square this one off because it looks like he exited plenty fine.
He was wide in the first part of Moss Corner, you're right, but then really squared up that exit, and it was actually Chris Walsh that kind of slid the front end on the second apex there at turn number 5. So he used the slipstream to close it back into the leader, but I think AJ Roper doing a great job just kind of hitting his marks right on the racing line, doing exactly what he needs to.
AJ's been having a pretty good season considering he's leading the points right now, a win and 4 second places so far. So yeah, or 3 second places, excuse me. So very, very handy out there and consistent. He's got track position. This is a place known for passing being difficult. I'd say he played this start of this race perfectly.
You're right. Walsh didn't get going on that green flag, and Roper just took advantage. And in turns 1 and 2 on that initial start, you can keep your foot to the floors. It looks like Jad Duncan is going to move around Larry Haas right there, move him up into 9th place. And I think that start was just played very well by Roper. And, actually, Walsh just might have given him a touch there in Moss Corner. I don't think it was anything severe, though.
Interesting. He's already putting the pressure on that much this early. But yeah, Jad managed to get by both Haas and Parsons while we weren't looking. So he's making steady inroads back forward in this race. As we watch Rondo once again, he's been teasing us with what seems like a potential pass at times, but still BJ Fulton will keep his arm out and will keep him just too far of a distance.
The final turn here, it's kind of a crapshoot through this final section leading up into turn number 1. It's not a great passing area into turn 1, just the brake zone isn't that big, but if the driver is off of the racing line, you mentioned how fast some of these corners are, you better watch out because whatever car is on the racing line is going to be closing rapidly.
Well, that's Dylan Scott right now. We've seen him get very close to Rondo for a bit. So Mark not only is on the attack, but he's going to have to play defense a little bit on top of that. It's always a difficult position to be in. But as they once again head down the hill through 4, it looks like nobody's in danger of being passed now.
Some of these cars, there's one. I believe that was Jeff Shulam going wide there in turn number 5. So easy to do. There's not very many big brake zones here at Mosport, and turn 5 is definitely one of them. Combine it with the bumps and the compression and everything. Sometimes you kind of are along for the ride in the middle of that corner.
Heindel gets one up to 7th with that little hiccup. And I always feel like I got Moss Corner wrong as we check in with Dustin Heindel, one of our favorite rigs, honestly, on the service. And doing fairly decently here today as he brings it around out onto the front stretch to start lap 5.
Dive downhill into turn number 1 here at Mosport, and then turn 2, the coolest turn in my opinion on this track, up over the crest, just barely lift off the throttle. You see him have to go down a gear there just because of the rolling speed, back up to 5th. Gosh, this place is just so dang fast.
And it continues to put on a challenge for drivers even now in modern day. It is scary, but it certainly rewards those who are brave. Dustin still remaining ahead of Jeff after making that pass, so he's not being caught all that quickly. What about Will Castillo here? Looks like he's trying to get by Mike Parsons. He's been flashing his headlights. Looks like he intends to try and do something soon.
You can see that giant compression going there into that section too. It kind of invites the driver to take extra speed into that braking zone, but it's always the exit of Moss Corner. That's the most important part because it leads down this Andretti straightaway. Trying to grab the slipstream from Mike Parsons. I don't think he's quite close enough here on this lap, but just got to be close through the S's, maybe get that over-under going.
Will's one of those drivers that went off early, so he's trying to poke his nose down to the inside of the left-hander there at 9, but did not quite work out. I'm sure if he stays patient, it looks like he'll get an opportunity. We've got a replay here. Let's take a look, see what happened a little bit earlier. Larry Haas, and this is down through turn 4 into Moss. Wheels in the This is not going to be the way to go. Oh, good save, though.
Very nice save. As long as he keeps it on right there, good job. And that's quite easy to do. You're coming down the hill here and a little bit just off reference. And then this is the same part of the racetrack. Dylan Scott, I assume that is pretty much going to be the exact same thing going down the hill into Moss Corner there. Either outbraked himself in the brake zone or grabbing that left side grass. It's a common thing to do for sure.
Looked like he was returning from the outside of the track there, so definitely looked like he went off. Looks like maybe we've got a view of it. Let's take a look. Chasing behind Rondeau. Gets a little too close, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit of contact there and over under, and right now we've got a battle for the lead. So Chris Walsh just made a move coming off of the back straightaway, and AJ Roper is now on the wrong side of the racetrack, and Ezra Kelderman has joined the party in the last half lap or so, but the new leader, the 104, Chris Walsh.
You know what that says to me? Chris watched the start of that race, and he was taking notes, like you like to say, because that's pretty much the move that AJ did to get by him.
Just all you got to do is get close enough, and then you can get the car up along the inside. I think that Roper's been so good out of this corner right here, Moss Corner, but now that Walsh has got a kind of a clean line of sight, I think he's leaving him in the dust.
Yeah, I think he was being held up a bit there. Question is Ezra also quicker than AJ Roper? Because he did not out-qualify him, but AJ managed to snipe him on that very last lap across to get himself into P2. So it was tight. It could be that they're just very evenly matched. We'll have to wait and see what the second 2/3 of the race holds.
This car right here, Kelderman, was back by about 1.5, 1.6 seconds at one point. And so, yeah, he's crawled back in that gap. Whether that's from Walsh and Roper fighting doesn't matter. And also, credit to the 82 of BJ Fulton, because that last lap time, a 1:16.9, that matches our leader, Chris Walsh, out front. So really, it's 4 cars all up front here.
Yeah, that's a good point. All of them within about 2 seconds of one another is, Parsons side by side with Castillo. I think Will managed to get by a little bit earlier on this last lap, but he's still having to fight him as the Rexy car is making him work hard. He's got the inside down into Clayton Corner, and there it is. Job's done this time.
Always gotta love that Rexy theme car. I mean, how many are there? There's Rexy and Roxy and a few others now between the prototypes, isn't there?
I have no idea at this stage. I just know that it seems to be the most common paints I see on the Porsche now these days.
I love it. I think between the teeth, and then my favorite part about this themed paint is over by the door handles, he's got the little T-Rex arms. It makes me laugh.
They are pretty funny looking. As Shulam has a paint that I believe he had a friend design for him, for what I understand, but he's up to 7th right now, chasing on Dustin Heindel. Remember, he lost that spot to Dustin a little bit earlier on when he went off at Moss Corner. Hasn't been able to get it back. Dylan Scott, in the meantime, also went off at that same corner, has recovered to 8th, and is starting to get closer to the 371.
Kind of yo-yoing back and forth between these 3 or 4 cars here, and they're all doing either low 17s, mid 17s, or high 17s, depending on the lap. So sometimes the gap fluctuates a little bit, but you're right. Heindel's been right there on the back of Rondeau's. Shulam's on the back of Heindel, and Dylan Scott is all into it as well. So if one of these drivers maybe just starts to turn really consistent laps, we'll get one moving forward.
Kind of curious what's going to happen with Duncan behind them as well, because remember, he's been kind of making passes at the back of the pack, but as he climbs his way forward, we all know that tends to get a little bit harder. Is he going to be able to side through this pack, or is he going to get a bit stuck?
They're all going off of the back straightaway here, and that car that you were talking about is that yellow car that's right behind Dylan Scott here, and he is closing in. I'm always a sucker for the data. So that last lap time, a 17.0 from Jad Duncan, 16.7 from Dylan Scott. Let's see as they go through the line this time. They're all going to be into the 17s. And you're right, actually, Jad Duncan and Dylan Scott faster than the car right in front of them of Jeff Shulam.
Here's what's wild. I'm looking at the lap times for Jad. Last 2 laps were the same down to the thousandth of a second. That's some consistency right there.
And it's a 17-0. That's faster than, all the way up past 6th place, probably paced for the top 5.
All right, can he get there is the question as we watch from Dylan Scott trying to gain on Jeffrey Shulam. As you said, also with a 17-1, so definitely quicker than Jeff last time by about 0.6 of a second here. Coming down the Mario Andretti straight. He's going to get a nice toe. I don't think he's close enough for anything at the end of the straightaway, but this will definitely pull him in.
In turn 8, the brake zone is not very big. There's plenty of passing that can go on here at the end of the straightaway. You just really have to use that entire straightaway to get up alongside of him. I think it happens more here in the 9 and 10 complex, as we saw Dylan Scott took a lunge there at Shulam, and then we saw Jad Duncan almost get tripped over in turn 10 himself.
While setting fastest lap of the race at a 16.2, which is actually only about a 10th quicker than Roper, so they're all still staying pretty even on pace. But up and over the crest into turn 2 now. This is Clayton Corner, leading down to a big compression at the bottom of it. They've all separated apart somewhat. Maybe Dylan realized he doesn't need to be right on top of Jeff, because otherwise things got maybe a little scarily close for him.
That yellow car kind of clipped that turn 3 curbing there. You always want to make sure to not upset the car if you can. Now we roll through Moss, and that was a really wide entry from Dylan Scott. That allows you to square up the exit, and this is a great opportunity. He's right in the tire tracks of Shulam on the straightaway.
Is he going to try something this time? Will it pull him up enough as they climb the hill? You'll go over this blind crest, then you can see your turn in just at the last moment. And no, he's unable to do anything. There was some weaving there. I think Shulam and Scott thought maybe something was on.
I think that corner that we just went through, turn 9, the left-hander, that is where Dylan Scott is definitely faster than the car right in front of him. The previous 2 laps, he's made huge lunges, but Shulam has had the car right on the racing line, so Dylan Scott can't go up the inside there. He may have to try around the outside. I know it's a long way around, but he clearly has more speed in that section.
Did you notice in the upper right, Roper just took the fastest lap that time? He's keeping up with Walsh to a degree that he's actually quicker on some laps. So I feel like we're seeing a brand new AJ this season. He is just on another level.
The one thing that is odd to me about the front 4 now is that Kelderman has definitely fallen off. Remember, I made the comment that he had closed it back into the front 2. Well, now he must have had a bad lap somewhere. He's 2.5 seconds off of that fight.
That'll be a shame if he loses touch and is unable to keep with the battle for a potential win. So we still watch Jeff Shulam just ahead of Scott. This is a battle for P7 right now. Still nothing doing down into the S's. They all stay line astern. And frustratingly for Dylan, he seems quicker in this part. It's just hard to pass here.
Another thing that I just noticed about this Dylan Scott car is that he definitely has rear damage on it. Wonder if that's affecting his top speed or even just rear end grip with these Porsches. You know how important that is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he made contact with the wall when he had his off at Moss Corner from what I could see. So just backed it into it lightly. I didn't think it would cause damage, but apparently it did, unfortunately. And AJ Roper back to this fight, still within about half a second of the leader. Last time by a 16.2 for AJ, a 16.3 for Chris. He continues to chip away, and that was a fantastic exit off of Moss.
Walsh just had a little bit of understeer in that second apex there, and we're going to see if Roper can do maybe something a little bit out of the ordinary, show the nose in an area, maybe get Chris Walsh off of the racing line. But for now, it looks like just regular old line astern. Going to have to get a little bit closer to rattle his cage.
Certainly, and it's difficult to try and get Chris to make a mistake. Not impossible. We've seen a few from him over these 2 seasons he's joined, but he is certainly very tough under hard conditions. as Dylan Scott kicks up a little bit of dust coming off of the final corner, trying to extend the track as much as he can to try and catch up to Dustin Heindel, but to no avail yet.
No, not quite there, but I think that the 3-car party has turned into a 4-car party for sure. So I think Heindel will maybe be watching his mirrors a little bit more. And as soon as you look down at that relative and there's even more cars in your mirror, it just kind of makes that anxiety level go a little bit higher. And here we go. Schulem is all over the back of Heindel, and there's a lunge from Dylan Scott. A little bit of some contact going there into Moss, but they all come out the other side.
Amazingly, because Jeffrey Schulem shut the door when I think there was already a leg completely through. Poor Dylan Scott. Personally, I thought that was fair game because he outbraked him, yes, and it was late, but fully alongside by the turn, and it seemed like, and just unable to finish the job as we watch from Dustin Heindel. I'm guessing he won't try that same thing twice, but certainly as that left an impression, I'm guessing, on the 08 car.
Tell you what, those three have really closed up now of Schulem, Scott, and Duncan there. I think that Dylan Scott is by far the most aggressive on the brake zone of this bunch right here. So if you're looking for some action, I'd keep my eye on that 3rd car in line.
He's getting a little bit closer just now. Does he try it into Quebec? He thinks about it, shows himself in the mirrors. Can't quite make it stick, though. He's got to be careful because Jad Duncan is now getting within range that maybe he could pick up the pieces if Dylan has another failed attempt.
Whoa! And there's another huge dive bomb. He's going to take both of them off the track this time. That was just way too deep from Dylan Scott, and Jeff Schulem paid the price as well.
I said he won't try it that way again, and I guess I was wrong. That was ambitious. Unfortunately, definitely was not going to work. Schulem gets back out there in 8th, but now Duncan gets a 2-for-1. He's up to 7th, and now all that's left in front of him is Heindel.
Watch Will Castillo also try to sneak up the inside. That green car is the 561 of Mike Parsons, so they're still arguing over a top 10 position. We're going to GSRC replay here of exactly what happened. So watch Dylan Scott here, the 3rd car in line. He just outbrakes himself going down the hill into Moss Corner, gets to the inside of Schulem, but then Schulem turns in and Scott takes him off the racetrack.
Yes, I said the first one looked fair game. That one definitely did not. That was a little too far back. And he paid the price very poorly. Unfortunately, Castillo on Parsons. I think Mike might be a new face here, and he seems to be holding well for himself, as sadly for Dylan, he actually, it looks like, had to go take a spare car due to damage. So he'll fall all the way to last place now.
Look down the inside there, into turn number 3, Castillo. So I've been noticing this orange car of Will Castillo definitely putting the nose in some areas there, and I think Mike Parsons is purely focused more on the corner exit, so it's providing a nice little back and forth battle. One's fast on entry, the other fast on exit.
We're always talking about the historic liveries that we love. I do like Will's because that was one that was on Porsches from, I believe, the 70s, the Jägermeister paint scheme with the sort of rusty orange.
Yes, a very classic livery for sure. And Jägermeister over there, definitely one of the most popular brands. Doesn't matter what sporting event you're at.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that's water over there for them. Jack Duncan, in the meantime, wow, he's wasted no time. He's already hassling Dustin. But, I mean, Heindel's doing fantastically. He's had 3 cars behind him earlier on, held him back for multiple laps. Now he's got Jad Duncan close behind, and I spoke too soon, maybe. I thought he was going to go wide there.
Hey, you were talking about Heindel's pace. He's actually faster than the 2 cars in front of him as well. So, I think 4.5, 5 seconds, maybe not close enough to catch him with 8 minutes left, but at least Heindel and Jad Duncan will be able to get to fight for a little while.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, Chris Walsh, with AJ Roper behind, has extended it to about 0.8 of a second. Sets another fastest lap up at the front of the field. They've been creeping downwards bit by bit. Both of them have been running impressively. I'm seeing a few little bobbles there in terms of lap time, but the way they've managed to get quicker and quicker throughout this race is pretty eyebrow-raising.
And you were making the comment about how AJ Roper is a new driver here this season. I think even this race, he's going to walk away smiling from it and enjoying it because look at the pace that he's got. We've commented on so many times. He's right there with Walsh. He made the pass on the start. Once Walsh got around him fair and square, he hasn't let go. He's obviously very, very fast, and he's going to be there to pounce if Chris makes any mistakes.
Certainly. So this is a pretty closely matched race between the pair of them. Kelderman sadly just couldn't quite keep up this time to try and back up his opening series win, but he's still going to get himself back-to-back podiums, which is not too shabby if he can bring it home in the next 7 minutes. What about Jad Duncan once again, as Heindel will block the inside line down into turn 8, no dice.
See if he can kind of get him off of the racing line just that little bit as go through turn number 10, complete another lap. That'll click them over to lap number 19 now here at Mosport. Dive down off into turn number 1, and Jad really hugging that apex curbing, using all of the racetrack. Heindel maybe just a little bit further off of some of those apexes.
Yeah, he's leaving some space. Surely Jad's going to try and jump on that if it comes down to the end of it. You can see him closing in through Quebec now. The long right-hander that opens up on the exit. And Dylan Scott already catching up to Larry Haas. This is for position.
Remember, Dylan had to come in, get that new car after that incident down there in Moss, and there was a great shot of the exit of turn number 1, and all the drivers using up every bit of that road. And I actually think that these two cars right here are catching that Castillo versus Parsons battle. This will be interesting.
Ooh, yeah, good point. Last lap for Will was a 1:18.9. Oh, well, there goes that for Larry Haas. He goes off, and that gives Dylan Scott back 11th place. Now, can he try and catch up to those two? Whoa, way wide there for Castillo. He's going to be able to somehow bring it back around. He loses touch to Parsons, but now Dylan Scott has had all that ground made up for him.
It's fun watching some of these guys charge into the brake zones. They're just trying to get every last little bit, and sometimes it definitely is too much, and we've seen it several times from a lot of the different drivers in Moss Corner. It is a tricky turn.
It always impresses me how the compression makes you feel like a superhero into that turn, because you can just brake so late considering how fast you're coming into it. Let's see how late Jad Duncan is willing to take it. Not late enough that he's going to try a pass. Maybe he's setting himself up for the back straightaway here.
I think he does get the right foot down just a little bit smoother and earlier than Heindel there right in front of him. And this is Dylan Scott. I think that he'll actually be able to make the pass on Will Castillo before the back straightaway. So see if he makes the move into Moss Corner, gets the exit out of Quebec Corner. Turn number 3 is, I believe, Jad Duncan's going to try to go around the outside here into the S's off of the back straightaway. So that's the move that he was looking for. Heindel's going to fight back on the right side going into turn number 10. We stay side by side, drag race down the front straightaway.
Into turn 1, advantage to Heindel on the inside. Turns in, a little bit of ghost contact between them. Thankfully doesn't wreck either car, but with the elbows out, Jad Duncan moves himself back up into 6th.
I think that Jad was expecting Heindel to go down all the way across the apex curb like we saw from that one camera shot, and Heindel was just drifting off of that apex like we've seen a little bit over the previous couple laps, but a little bit of door-to-door contact is totally A-okay.
I know this is going to be disappointing for Jad, considering the off right at the start kind of set the tone for him, but he's done an admirable job getting at least up to 6th. Probably could have had a bit more today if he had managed to keep it on the track at the beginning. Meanwhile, back to Will once again, chasing on Parsons.
I think that the two orange cars in this battle are definitely more aggressive on the brakes than that green 561 of Parsons. So this is an opportunity here. Let's see how aggressive Will Castillo is into turn number 5. Oh, a little bit wide there, a little bit of a twitch going in, and then trying to get the power down. Actually gets an excellent run. This is going to be a great opportunity off of the end of the back straightaway.
He was completely on the limit there, just wiggling on the wheel to try and keep it straight as he put his foot to the floor. They're going to get close between them, maybe a little too close. I think that actually slowed up Castillo as they switch sides, and unless he's very deep into turn 8, which he is not, he's not going to be able to get the pass done here. I thought for sure he had something. Well, there it is once again. Oh, but he made himself open to attack. Here comes the likes of Dylan Scott down the inside of White's corner and picks his pocket.
You saw Will Castillo get surprised by that move, left some extra room for Dylan Scott. Great piece of racecraft there from the 08, and so now he'll look to try to get around the green Rexy car, and actually the opportunity might come here into turn number 3. That was a little bit of a shakeup there from Parsons in 2, so just compresses them all up, and let's look down towards the compression once again here in Moss Corner.
I have to say, I really am proud of what we're seeing out of Parsons. It doesn't seem like he has the outright pace, but his placement of the car has just flummoxed everybody trying to overtake him.
And there's another great example of it, is that he was right smack on the racing line, just kind of choked him up. That allowed Castillo to look to the inside of Dylan Scott. Both of those cars were trying to get around Parsons. He says, yeah, you guys argue amongst yourself. I will love seeing that in my mirror.
Let's see, Will wants that spot back. It failed him last time to try and make this move. This time he backs out of it a bit. Will he try and stick his nose in once again? This is his favorite place. No, covered off by Dylan down into turn 9. Dylan, though, is going to try and climb the curbs to see if he can overtake Parsons. That doesn't work, and once again, it slows him up.
Just the two cars that are so aggressive on entry, it costs them so much on exit. You really only can kind of tell from some of these TV angles out there, and Parsons is just doing such a good job on the back half of the corner. You see how rapid. Here comes Dylan Scott taking a look down to the inside of 3, but once again, Parsons just shuts the door and gets a great exit.
White flag is out for Chris Walsh. He's got less than a lap to go now, and he's actually run away from Roper by about 2.5 seconds. There's a big one from Dylan. He did that before, and it bit him badly, as tries for an over-under does Will Castillo. That doesn't work. They're going to have one more lap to go because they're barely ahead of our leader, Chris Walsh, who is right here now coming through Moss.
He's just got half a lap remaining, and like you were saying, got 2.5 seconds over AJ Roper now. Just put it into cruise control, get through the last section, and Chris Walsh will collect another win.
He's got 2 so far this season, back at round 2, and then 2 rounds ago at race number 6. But otherwise, he's only had 1 other podium back in round 4, finishing 2nd. Been an inconsistent season, hasn't been able to attend many races. This will hopefully make up for it and return him to the top step, as Chris Walsh will take victory in Canada.
Nicely done, overcoming that start, and then AJ Roper crosses the line in 2nd. Kelderman actually comes back a little bit to a 1.5 second gap to finish the podium in 3rd.
Yeah, and a great drive there from the number 6 to start off his season. Meanwhile, Larry Haas was having some trouble as he's getting overtaken there by, I think that was Jad Duncan, and we've seen this move before. I think Dylan Scott might not get the message about that clamber over the inside curb at Moss move.
No, he's not, and unfortunately, he's going to have to probably deal with a slowdown as the rest of the field comes across the start-finish line. This is that 561 of Mike Parsons. The orange car of Will Castillo can still steal this away. I just feel like he's a little bit too far back. He's going to have to throw a Hail Mary.
Parsons qualified 12th. Last, whoa! And it's not over. And once again, nobody seems to be able to crack the nut that is Mike Parsons. Castillo will limp it to the line after that one, but at least he can finish in 10th because of Dylan Scott's failed attempt as well. That was a wild finish, and Mike Parsons earned that 9th place tonight. That's going to take us to a quick break. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Mosport. Canadian Tire Motorsport Park officially has seen Chris Walsh take the win over AJ Roper. It was actually quite a battle as AJ led the early laps after not getting the pole, and Chris eventually squeaked by. AJ held on, but couldn't keep up enough by the end. Still second place for him as Ezra Kelderman was third, and then you've got BJ Fulton finishing P4. Jad Duncan had to work hard to get that top 5. Eventually, he got his way there, but he fell backwards at the very beginning of the race and slowly but surely picked off car after car. Heindel was 6th as Rondeau was 7th. Jeff Shulam, P8 today. And then you've got Mike Parsons, 9th. Will Castillo, 10th. Then Dylan Scott and Larry Haas rounding out your 12-car field. Chris Walsh ready to talk to us about his victory here today, his third of the season. So he is starting to rack them up once again like we saw in last season as well. Chris, congratulations on another win, but let's talk about the starts. It looks like you got caught out a bit by AJ.
Yeah, I just timed the pace car timing poorly, and I just was late to the gun. He did a good job. It's a tough track because you've got turn 1, but you're right next to each other. So as long as he holds the outside, I knew I was vulnerable into the next carousel. I think he did a good job. A great move by AJ. So I had to tuck in behind him and wait. He was kind of slow in the last sector, so I just kind of waited till I closed up and kind of snuck attack into the final corner there.
Well, and we noticed that the move was very similar to what AJ did to you. Was that kind of returning the favor a bit?
Yeah, I just, I figured, hey, as long as I can get in beside him and then defend on the outside through turn 1, even if we go side by side, it's really hard to hold the outside line in turn 2. So, yeah, that was kind of my game plan once I got through, and it worked out. And then I kind of the car started to lighten up and got the tires back under me, and I started to find a pretty consistent pace there. So it was a good second half of the race, but definitely more enjoyable racing this time. So that was a fun start.
Absolutely. And you've had some races in the past that were very Verstappen-esque and that you ran away from everybody. That wasn't really the case this time. It seemed like AJ was genuinely on pace with you.
Yeah, he was super fast. Ezra was super fast too. So it's a shorter track. It's kind of hard to run away. I think, once I got kind of settled into the rhythm there, the second half I started to find some more pace. But early on, I mean, there was nothing between us. I just was trying to be super consistent and make no mistakes, and AJ was keeping me honest the whole time.
Oh, it was fun to watch from our perspective. A great race between you two, and again, congratulations.
All right, thanks guys. Have a good night.
As Chris Walsh in the number 104 taking the victory, as Joey has caught up with AJ Roper, who did his right best to try and keep Chris honest.
AJ Roper, congratulations on the second place tonight.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So, you did a great job on that start. Walk us through those first couple corners.
I was just trying my best to kind of keep Chris at bay, and I figured if I could get a good start, I'd have the advantage going into 2, and that's kind of what worked out for me. But he was on it the whole time, and just one little mistake, and he was able to, capitalize on it and take it over. But congrats, it's great to race with Chris, and Ezra, congrats on the podium as well.
It seemed like you had quite a bit of pace. Even once Chris got by you there after a handful of laps, you didn't let go of him. Did you feel like you maybe had something to attack later on in the race, or were you just kind of taking notes behind him?
There was one moment where he kind of got a little bit out of shape in the hairpin, and then again right near the last couple of turns, but just not enough to get close to him. And then as soon as I burned my tires up, and I nearly wrecked myself coming out of Ford, almost touching the grass. And at that time, I just kind of backed off a bit.
Okay, so I got to ask you then, if you felt you maybe roasted the tires off, were you noticing Kelderman close it in on you in those last couple laps behind you?
Yeah, I had a cushion. I knew when I made that last little charge with Chris that I wasn't going to get there, and so I backed it down a bit. Knew I didn't have to, wreck myself.
Well, great job tonight. Congrats on the second place, and we'll see you next round.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.
That was AJ Roper, driver of the 07, finishing second at Mosport tonight.
And finishing third behind him was Ezra Kelderman, who started things off with a win back at Suzuka. Couldn't quite back that up this time, but Ezra, a win and a podium in your first 2 races in the series. I'd say that's a pretty good start.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thanks, guys. Didn't have the rain on my side this time, but it was pretty awe-inspiring trying to chase AJ and Chris in this one. Felt like qualifying every lap.
Well, let's talk about that, because we noticed that it seemed like you were keeping up early on, and then it felt like it fell away about halfway through the race. AJ said he felt his tires going off late on. Is that kind of what you experienced too?
Yeah, like on lap 9 when I went down to the hairpin there, which was, a little bit of a gamble each time to stay on pace. I think I did an early downshift and lost the rear all the way around the turn. And that's how I dropped off the draft, and then was, in BJ's draft there. Or BJ had my draft. But from then on, I don't think the tires really went off too much until maybe like the last 4 or 5 laps. I started picking up some pace, taking some risks, but in the end, I could not catch back up to them.
You said you had the rain on your side at Suzuka, and in a similar vein, next race is going to be at Long Beach, where a little bit of chaos and drivers falling off the island could come back to help you. Do you see yourself doing well out in California?
Gosh, I don't race there much, but I definitely think that it's going to be a war of attrition. So I'll try to keep my nose clean and not take too many risks, and we'll just see how it turns out.
I think that sounds like a good plan. Again, congratulations on a podium, and hopefully we'll talk in next race.
Thanks so much.
Ezra Kelderman finishing third today, which is going to wrap us up. So, of course, we want to give a thank you to our sponsors once again. Porsche, there is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com, and Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Contact them today at GameChangerPR.com or 225-664-2565. Thanks to the team today, Joey, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. Next time, as we mentioned, Long Beach, Monday, April 29th at 11 p.m. Eastern. But be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. And until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.